Hello, everybody. Good morning. It is Monday, December 29th, 2025. Getting ready to close out this year. Hope you guys had a nice weekend. Last week was a little funky with the volume and with the trading just because we had a shortened holiday week with Christmas and all. And so hope you guys are taking time out for the holidays and kind of balancing the market, which is, a lot lower volume right now. So let's just dive right into what we're looking at. There's a lot of good moves happening today. So super excited. I think it's going to be a wonderful day. It's going to be interesting to kind of see how the year closes out. Let's take a look at my screen here, my window. So these are some of the tickers I'm looking at. I do watch Bitcoin. Some of you guys who follow me know that I'm not passionate about coin. I don't trade it. I follow it just to understand how to trade some of the equities and some of the ETFs that are associated with Bitcoin, but I don't myself own any Bitcoin. I never have, never probably will. It's just a fascinating thing that a lot of people jumped into. So the way I have my setup on my charts is I have sort of the things that I'm watching here on the right, and then I have basically a 1 minute chart that just allows me to see the kind of minute by minute action. And then I have on a different window, kind of a blow up way of looking at that same stock, but under multiple time frames. So that same stock, I can look at it in a daily, minute, 5 minute, 15 minutes. Some people go to, 30 seconds, depending on what type of trader you are. What that allows you to do is understand different levels of support resistance, overall behavior of the stock, overall trend, and things like that for the day. And then for my last window is I have a daily chart. And so the daily chart basically just allows me to see the overall global picture of the stock without just having a lot of the other indicators. I have some of just the moving averages on this one and the overall trend and some of the volume, the RSI and things like that. So that's kind of generally how I have my setup. Everyone's setup is different, everything's unique. The one that I got to say that has really caught my eyes today, we talked about it on the Friday recap, is silver. Had my eye on this. We knew that, with that gap up on Friday, there was a decent chance to go short. And of course, it gapped and never closed. So I had mentioned I was probably about 70 cents in the money. Took some out, reloaded up here at the 68 level, and then got squeezed out. And then saw this morning we were down. So not a big surprise. Mentioned that the volume was quite high, as you can see. And so, we were able to go with a true average true range of $4, which is a lot higher than these other days where, you're about half that volume, and you can see we're about a $2 mover. And so, yeah, it was just a final squeeze. If you look at this on a monthly, like on a monthly chart, it's just, or excuse me, even a weekly chart, like this thing is literally just up in the air. I mean, this thing just flew, got ultimately squeezed. So it's out there, and it was about time. And so, great way to close gap. There'll definitely be a lot of buyers here in the 65 area. And this thing will most likely will run at open. And then we expect to see some type of failure. And so if you're trading this or you're interested in trading that, you can just kind of look at the levels. Again, this is something I'm even working on. I'm just being perfectly honest. It's very easy to want to jump into stocks and things when you see the opportunities are there. It's very easy, right? Like to want to get involved. And what happens sometimes when you get involved is the volume gets bigger as you get closer to open. And so when you're in the pre-market, and my broker allows me to trade essentially 1 o'clock PST or 4 o'clock AM New York time. You can see the bars are very small of volume. And then as you get closer and closer to open, you can see that the volume bars have completely gotten much, much bigger. And so when they get much, much bigger, now you kind of know where the algos and where the traders are looking at the stock. Where are they stuck? Where are they buying? Where are they selling? Um, and imagine you're someone here that was involved Friday and you're happy, right? Because this was a great, I mean, I mentioned this was a great trade. I mean, if you were bullish, really there was no pullback here. This thing just ran straight up, and then it actually ran after hours. I think it was about a couple bucks, right? So it closed closer to 70, what was it? 71, and it ran all the way up here to north of 72. So you had another buck or so for a stock that again doesn't really move a whole lot, after hours. And so this thing just ran after hours. So people probably thought, oh yeah, I'm in a short squeeze. This thing's gonna, continue on. And they woke up today to see that you went from 72, now you're down at like the 65. And so that's how the market gets you guys. There's a lot of this type of manipulation that's involved, and that's why a lot of people lose money, including myself. How we make mistakes, things like that, is you sometimes hold these positions thinking that you're going to get continuation. Reality, this move that you're seeing today was expected on Friday, right? And so the move Friday for the shorts got squeezed, and then the shorts come in today. And so now, why do we know today is a short day? First thing, the most obvious thing is the gap down. So when you see a gap down, similar to where you're here, and then you start essentially lower the next day, that's obviously the first sign of a good short. And so again, this is just a killer short for today. Um, had you gotten a position. That's not my trading style. I personally wouldn't start a short after hours or buying anything into the close for the next day. That's just not my style of trading. And especially with that type of volume, there was really no validation for this move. And so I think today, really you want to look at these levels here and decide if you want to get involved in the short. And so the 68 level looks interesting. That looks like the pre-market high is just sort of 69, excuse me. And so let's see how high they can run this. And then it looks like they're, selling this off. It's down almost 8% now. It's just completely, I mean, they're completely abandoning the stock. So, again, this thing is ran. Keep in mind, this was, a $65 stock on Thursday. And so it being at 65.75 is nothing to panic about if you are long silver. This is simply just filling a gap on a short squeeze that happened on Friday. The stock that I'm kind of more interested in watching too is Tesla. I think Tesla, very interestingly, just had no buyers. And, I mentioned this, and you can tell, from my daily chart here that we mentioned we identified this level of this 489, and this 489 consistently was just rejected. I mean, it was rejected over and over and over again, right? So here's this 489 level, and it was constantly squeezed and rejected. And so what happens eventually is all the sellers just come in, right? And so you have this heavy volume of selling. I mean, this is a 15-minute candle, so this is over an hour of just straight selling before we find a bottom, and then we gap down even lower. And so what usually happens, if you can't break a level and the sellers are just in control, they'll just sell it all the way down, right? And there's no reason to buy because you can't break any level. And so what I really think is going to happen is we're really at a good bottom here at the sort of 468. This is a level I would personally be interested in and buying along, is at this 460, looks like 460, it could, yeah, 466, 465. We're pretty much near the bottom, I should say. That 465, 466 level, for it to potentially run up back up into that through that 489 longer term. That's how I see the setup. Again, trading is always, it's a day-to-day thing. It may not happen today, but to me, that's the setup that I think it's setting up for, is that it couldn't break the 489. The sellers are in control, and then they'll try to run it back up and break, at least retest that $500 level. We hit 498, never quite hit 500. And so I expect that to happen at some point. Like I said, today I do expect that bottom to hit, and then for us to run right back up. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's just solid. That silver short, um, unbelievable. I kind of wish I didn't cover now. I wish I didn't cover going into. I mentioned on the Friday recap, I was short around 68. I got 70 cents on it. Now I'm looking at the complete sell off, and we're at 65, 64. So uh, you know, pretty good winner. At 65, it's about a 2.5 point winner, but that's just the way the market is just, today was the day to do the short. So, 70 cents versus 2.5 points, but again, that's just the way it is. Can't cry over spilled milk. Still watching App Lovin. I mentioned I have some puts in this stock. Right here, I'm waiting for this move back to 630 as a secondary support on the bounce. I just mentioned it does line up with that 50-day, which makes this even more interesting. I love when I see multiple indicators. You guys may see different indicators on my chart. You don't need to follow that. Everyone's different. I've added and removed things over the years. But just very standard traditional moving averages. This is that line that I see here at the 633 level. And you can see this 50-day, which is obviously going to be moving up every day as we're trading much higher. And so this is, where I'm looking at a flush for app at some point, a lot of doji candles. And so hoping that, looking again, I mentioned at the MACD, you want to really see that the momentum, the slope of those momentum lines are and the signal line are facing negative, and so that you're getting downward momentum and a confirmation for that short. Shorter term, I mean, probably this week, maybe you get the 657, but if we can get a good flush, I mean, 632 is really where I'm looking at taking out those puts. Micron, you know, same thing. Is it was interesting. It gapped up. We thought we were going to go towards 300. I was actually a believer we were going to get into 300. That's the way the stock was setting up, and it completely faked people out. And now look today, we gap lower, and we're down at essentially was this 280, 279. And so again, this is how you trap people in the market. That's why it's really tough to trade. Sometimes if you don't have a game plan or a stop loss plan to get out, because if you were here waiting for that break and you're still waiting, I mean, you're now down 20 points from that what was supposed to be a 300 break. This was a new leg up, and we thought this was going to take us to the promised land here. I was actually long MU quite a while. I actually had the stock. I owned the stock longer term in my longer term account um, years ago. It was back at like 85, $86. Um, and then it ran up. I think it eventually ran up to like 130. So I was out of it long, like a while back. And then you just had this long period of consolidation. So from August, or you can call it sort of August 24 to essentially May 25. So almost about a year. You essentially just traded sideways, and then you just broke completely out of that. So it's a stock that, was only $80 not that long ago. And now, like 7 months ago was a $90 stock. Now it's trading 3x. So a lot of the stuff is overhyped, I think, and that's the stuff that makes me nervous. Just longer term is when I see stocks that have just run incredible amounts. It just makes me a little nervous, just to kind of see like that's not healthy. I've always been about the slow and steady movement. When things start to squeeze like that or kind of move up high, again, it's sort of just the sector we're in, like with Nvidia, right? Where you had a stock that was, essentially, $150 that ran up just massively in such a short time. So it's a hype. I get it. It's kind of like, Bitcoin, all the other stocks. Coin is interesting. Some more negative press. I've mentioned this in previous videos that we want to see this break from 231 right down here into the low twos, like the 212. And the setup has been there. I mentioned that we could probably see another push up if they wanted to, but it looks like just based on all the red candles, if that floor breaks, and the floor we're talking about is at 231. If that floor breaks at 231, definitely see that fill. So if that doesn't break, I wouldn't short that. I want to get involved. But if that does end up breaking, like I said, there's definitely a quite a fall there for coin. And that kind of follows also, the Bitcoin is, if you want to look at um on the list, Bitcoin, we've been consistently in the 80s. I'm very bearish on Bitcoin. I've published this on my personal Instagram that I expect to see Bitcoin the first half of next year at 45,000 to 50,000. That's my range. And so if that's something you're interested in at least entering or dip buying, that's where I would be buying. Obviously, that's significantly lower than where we're at. But that's just That's just the prediction and what I'm seeing based on the indicators. It's not to hate on it. Um, I my last prediction on Bitcoin when it was trading at like 50 was 16, which it did hit. So if I'm saying 45, it's not because I don't want it to go higher. It's just that's just the levels that I'm seeing on, when something wants to sell off. Um, so for coin, again, short below 231. The overall SPY, I mean, you're trading at all-time highs. It's just, this is a market that, crashed at the beginning of the year and then just sort of flushed out. I mean, you see the volume. I mean, this day was crazy. This day was, I mean, what is that? 55 points. I mean, the SPY usually moves no more than 10 a day. I mean, this is amazing, the amount of volume and flush we saw in the market. So again, guys, I mentioned I'm more on the bearish side. I think that we're way overextended. We've gone straight up, and so I'm looking more towards the downside. Getting back into the low sixes. And so we'll see how the market reacts. The market doesn't really care about my opinion, so kind of just keep watching it. But overall, you can just see that the trend has been just straight up. Yes, we had a real aggressive correction here, which again, I just don't like the aggressive stuff, just because it's really not healthy. A lot of people are panicking here, and then they just buy it back up. And so, that's kind of where I expect is this sort of breakout level here around the 600 level. That's where I think we want to be. And then you can see that if we enter a real bearish market, there's just a lot of these gaps on the daily here, here, here. And so we could really start to move back down, um, and maybe move sideways back into the market. Maybe this is back to 500. Maybe we validate the support right here a lot sooner, and that way we close all these gaps. And so, shorter term, 600 level, but potentially the 485 is where I'd be looking at for next year. Um, but I mean, you can't complain when you've seen a market just go straight up the last few years. A lot of this COVID money, all right? A lot of this COVID money came into the market. We have about 14 minutes till market open. Let me see here. We have about 14 minutes to the market open. I don't really see silver is still kind of trading. Coin, 230. It's right now. It's 207,000 is not it's enough volume to kind of see the levels. It's at 233 to 240. So again, we're still waiting for that 231 break. CVNA, same idea is, I mentioned that I bought into this push. We bounced off the 20-day, bought into this push, sold for a few points, and looks like, if we reject and we want to close this, there's this fall down all the way down here into the 400 area is definitely at play. I wouldn't open any long-term position in Carvana unless I could, buy something down here at $400 and then wait. If I'm wanting to short the stock, like I said, I would wait for this break here at the 425 level, and then I would short down. If I'm shorting at 425, I'd risk maybe $1, but I would definitely at least like to see, at least easily I mean, if it's 424 and we're looking at 409, there's a $15-16 spread there. So plenty of reward there if you can be patient and wait for that break. But I wouldn't be shorting the stock unless it broke this. And I'm more long term if we go back and push this or potentially even retest close to what was almost $500. This is when the S&P inclusion happened. Was this day? I think it was right here, and then it just got completely rejected, and now it's getting bought back up. Okay, so this is part of the SPY now as well. Not really watching this too much, but this did catch my eye because we did see that shorts were stuck in the stock and it was holding the trend. And when I say holding the trend, it's not flushing, it's not coming back down to earth. It's holding and it's consolidating upwards in 2 days. So I was a little surprised to see that gap down. Because I see the gap down, I would definitely be interested in the short, and the short would be, essentially where we closed over here, potentially, adding at 25.85. But looking at this 25 level, adding potentially at 25.85, I wouldn't risk any more than that. I would cut it at 26. And then, you really have just a lot of room for this to sell off. And so I don't think you close this gap. I think this is where you close your short, is in that $20 to $21 area, for a secondary bounce. And so if I was shorting this stock, again, I was short previous close, potentially add a position at the 25.85, and then I would cover right here, for that secondary daily support at $20.30, or even $21 if you want to be a little more aggressive. Let me drink some of my green tea here that I like to have every morning. So that's, again, they hold it over, and I think a lot of times I don't think it's easy to borrow. And so if you short, what easy to borrow refers to. Typically, that means your broker has these shares from other folks. Okay, so it is easy to borrow on mine. I use Lightspeed, so it looks like it is easy to borrow. But typically, if you have to pay borrow fees, there's a lot of reasons why shorts get squeezed out. Is they have to pay for fees to hold on to shares they don't own, but they're shorting. And so it looks like in this case that's not the problem, or at least with my broker, it says it's easy to borrow. And I could check the float, kind of see what. Let's see here. So is see what the stock is. So sometimes I like to use Finviz. That's FINVIZ, and I'll enter a stock symbol. So in this case, we'll do enter HYMC. And let's see. Yeah, so it has a 55 million share flow. It's not a lot. It's not, the short interest is 3.2, so it's pretty low. The float, yeah, the short float's only like 6%. So they probably got squeezed out and they got out. So, I could really see this thing if I were to put my prediction hat, which isn't always right, so don't hold me to this. I could definitely see the shorts down for a secondary bounce here, and then I could see this thing run and potentially squeeze out folks again. Main reason being is I look back at the daily chart, and there was the previous run up here in the 34 area. I think it was this push here is what I saw, the 30, 34, 35. And so, again, it's all about the volume. That's what's going to dictate it. But I could definitely see shorts trying to get squeezed out for the secondary test of this level here of $30. So again, run up here and then squeeze out when folks start trying to short in this sub 30 level. Again, could be completely wrong, and the float isn't that high. So, but yeah, it's 50 million shares traded. And so here, if we look, we could look at the volume. This day was 20 million and 15 million. So 20 million means that not even half the float was traded, but you could see the movement on it, right? So if you get easily, 40 million shares traded, right, this thing could skyrocket back to that 34 level pretty easily. So that's an interesting one. So yeah, that's what I would expect to see. I'll watch it. I'm not really that interested in it. It's down about 180,000 shares. Yeah, that's silver, man. That's just such a tease. A lot of times you get that FOMO action when you're a trader, because you don't want to miss out on all these moves, and you're just like, that's a doozy. Like I mentioned, I had a short over 68, and I was kind of hoping to see a confirmation. I thought I got a confirmation. You short into consolidation when you short. And so if I show you again, let's go back to silver. If I show you the consolidation on so you always short in consolidation. So I don't, I'm not waiting for all this stuff. I'm waiting for what are the levels that we traded. So we're in this sort of range here. And so that 68 level was very kind of where we consolidated. And so when we dipped, right, you're just kind of waiting. We dipped again, so we're just waiting. And so right here at 68.15 or whatever it was, ran down here again 70 cents, and then it just took off. So yeah, that's just the way it goes. But this is almost almost 3 points, about 2.5 points in the money right now. You're at 65.60. So like I said, I wouldn't really like to long the stock, because now you're trying to find the bottom of a stock that's just been squeezed. Not a fan of that. I've been there, done that. Um, Not a fan of it. I would not recommend that. No, don't be that crash dummy for finding the bottom, because now it's hit. This high was what, 65.53, and that's what we just bounced off of. But this thing can easily just come. There's another gap here. At the $60 level, there's another gap potentially here, and you have the 20-day. Down here at 57, 58. So if this thing really wants to sell off, guys, we could just see a fat. I don't expect it to get that low, to be honest. We've done a lot of volume, though. We've done 20 million, which is a lot. That's actually maybe even more, if I remember correctly. I think before we had opened, we had only done 15 million going into open on Friday. And if we've done 21 million, that tells me that this is definitely being sold off. So yeah, I mean, we might be able to get down here at the low 60s. So interesting thing to see it. And what sucks to be on the short side is a lot of that move that I was looking for has already happened. So I'm not trying to force a short when the move that I wanted has already happened. So you guys would say, well, why aren't you going to short today? You can, if you get run up into these levels. But in this case, if this thing decides not to run or close that gap, there's no short there. The short's already happened, in my opinion, even if this thing can move lower. Right. So if you want to short, you want to really go into this level of the six. That's back to that 68 level I mentioned from Friday. If you want to get involved. But yeah, this thing is just completely dying off. I mean, it's down 8%, about 5.5 points from the close on. So it's, yeah, I mean, that's pretty bad. So yeah, so that's pretty bad. NVDA, I don't really trade it anymore. To me, it's been a choppy stock, but it's, like I mentioned, it's been a great one for longs. It's been trading sideways for a while. No real sort of favorites here. I mean, you could play that level right here of 186. But it looks like it looks like it wants to get back up. I mean, that's the setup. That looks like you got, you're not oversold. You're kind of in the middle of the RSI. Your momentum is facing upwards, but you're just been trading sideways. So, you can get into a long, and but right in here, and see if we can break out. But this candle being a solid bullish candle, that to me just makes me think the thing wants to just go higher. I don't see why this thing would slow down. It's just one of those stocks that's just doing, it's just been killing the market, and it owns so much of the market share. So, so we have about 3 minutes to open. So let's go ahead and switch to our chart, kind of see how things are going. Oh, that's interesting. Look at Micron. So this is actually a good example, just right off the bat, why you don't want to get involved with stocks. Shorting is, let's say you were shorting Micron here, and in 3 minutes you went from 278 all the way up to 280, which is just a VWAP test, which is typically very common for shorts. If it closes below the VWAP, it's going to be a bearish day for that stock, and so if it gets rejected by the VWAP, that's usually bearish. But again, if you're shorting, you didn't close your position, you just lost 2 points. And this is, an interesting thing too, is silver is still trading pretty low, but it's making a pretty good base of that 65.50. And I mentioned that short play is kind of out of reach now. It's already sort of happened. So I'm not interested at this level to kind of figure out where does it want to bottom. Not interested in that level. So app loving, man. I mean, it'd be awesome to see this thing just go down, just go down the tube. Um, it could happen any day, but it's a very interesting stock, so I wouldn't count it. But we have about 40 seconds to open. My style of trading is I do trade the open. My recommendation is, if it's not clear, is usually you wait the first 5 or so minutes to kind of see where things want to go. Um, I've had levels right at open where, I'm 7, 8 points away, but we know that first volume, that first minute is the highest bar, and it completely just takes off and hits that target, and I end up being on the wrong side of the trade. And so don't underestimate the power of the market at open. And so there's nothing wrong with just sitting on your hands. And so we have 5 seconds. All right, guys, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Market is open. So silver, let's see what we want to do. Okay, so silver is actually going even lower. And see, look at coin, guys. So coin is going up. It's got rejected by the VWAP, right? You can see same thing for Tesla. Tesla got rejected by the VWAP. Very interesting. And it looks like silver just bounced. Looks like Tesla is making that bottom. So right here, here's that 465, 466 level. Just hit that right now. So this would be a long. This would be a long at the 466. It looked like it hit 466.09. We're at 467, so you're already up a point. Silver also kind of bounced off that level, made a low of 65.15. Again, if we go back to that daily chart, right, it's closed that gap, and so again, there's no short here, right? The short's not there. So this is a long trade, in my opinion. It's a long trade. Tesla just retested the VWAP. It's 468 and got rejected, and it just hit back at 466. Okay, so Tesla's making all new lows right now. We're at 465, 464. So Tesla's making all new lows. Let's see Tesla on the daily. So it just hit that. Yeah, so it looks like it just wanted to hit that 20-day, which is it's doing it pretty aggressively. This thing can move. So it looks like it's going to hit that. Looks like it broke that 465 level. We're making all new fresh lows, 463, 69. App is trading sub 700. So that's great news too for the shorts. For there. So maybe app just comes in here to that 493 level. Tesla's at 466, so it's already gone up almost $3, over $3 from its bottom. So you can see in a matter of less than a minute, right? You got a $3 movement. It's very impressive. Tesla's 477, $4 off its high. Silver has bounced off about 70 cents off its low. So yeah, I mean it's very, very impressive. So app is hitting that 496.94 level. Looks like it's trading up. It just bounced off of that 690, made it a low of 694. So you can see Tesla here, right? So it ran, we mentioned the VWAP, which is that volume weighted average price in the purple. Couldn't break it. Broke down, hit that 20-day EMA, retested it, failed. And so it doesn't look good. Look at Micron though. Micron's running. So again, it's hard to short pre-market, right? Because now you're going long. So you got to see which level it's rejecting. And I'm not a fan of shorting into this type of momentum, right? When a stock is this strong, I'm not a fan of it. Tesla looks pretty weak, honestly. We need to really break off this VWAP and start gaining over 470 for this thing to really show signs of life. and silver is making a comeback. So, like I mentioned, the reason why the short play wasn't there, the move had already happened, right? So if we go back to silver, the move had already happened here. So there's no short. So now it's a matter of pushing back. Now, does it want to go back up to 67? We'll find out. But now the longs are in control, right? So I mentioned this was the level, the 65 level. And now, running it back up to 60, 67 would be the ideal play, but we can't predict that. Let's see what's going on. So app is selling off, which is great. So let's see where we see app is now hit a low of 688. Yeah, I mean this thing has so much room to go, but like I said, I think that if we can really get a lot of selling at 655 would be where I would be looking at. Tesla's just completely selling off, not a good long at all. It's been a short for 2 days now. It's down 2.5%, down $11. Not a good long if you're long Tesla. Like I said, that 500 break, that 49 just didn't come through, and it looks like it's wanting to sell off, and silver is making all new highs, and so yeah, it really, the shorts are covering the positions now, and that's that. I mean, we did 20 million, was it? We're already at 32 million, and so this thing's just going to run up. I think this is just an easy trade. So you would have shorted that gap, and now you find the support right here at that level. We hit 65.15, and this level right here where we closed was 65.53, and now you're at over a point from where you started. So the longs are in control now of silver. So like I said, it's not a stock I'd short. And even if we fill this gap in, it's not even a stock I'd short because it may end up just closing there. Let's see what else is moving. Yeah, Micron's definitely coming back. So let's take a look at Micron real quick. So Micron, you know, I mean, it's a bullish stock. We know that, again, this has simply been a pullback, and we're gonna want to retest. And so, I don't know really where this thing may, this level here at that 286 that's been hovering around there a lot, and that's the level I would be looking at potentially to get interested. Um, yeah, there's a lot of good movers. That's a great move. I mean, that's a solid move. Buying along at open, you're up 7 points, guys. So imagine, again, not trying to sell people on day trading, but let's just say you put in even 50 shares at the bottom here at open. And you said, you know what? Clearly, there's going to be this gap to fill. If I start here, this stock had solid earnings. In a matter of 7 minutes, you have a 7, 8 point range. 50 bucks is $400. And again, that obviously is subjected to short term gains, but you can really see you don't have to go like large size, like thousands of shares, like these big, massive institutional traders. You could do 25, 10, 100, whatever your size that you're comfortable doing. And the goal is, and again, the thing that I'm constantly trying to learn myself too is just, cutting, when things go against your plan or doing your stop losses. That's literally what's going to make or break you as a trader, is just knowing your stop losses. Tesla, again, bounced off this 20-day. As you can see, it respects it, more or less. It does bounce a lot off of it. There's this massive gap. So again, people who were longing Tesla at this 465 were down, thinking that you're going to get the 476. So that's why I always tell people, right? You want confirmation. So now that we're hitting the bottom here, we want this thing to run up at least to get us back up here. Okay. So I expect eventually when this sell off comes down, if we end up selling down potentially even to 458, which might likely happen, we're much closer to it, then I expect definitely for us to continue our momentum. Let's see. If the MACD and the signal line end up negative slope, we can continue to see downward movement, but this chart looks pretty healthy. I'm expecting maybe the 459 to come in and then for this thing to run up. So let's see what that does. MU looks like it's struggling again. That we call that 286 level. Let's just look at it real quick. Yeah, look, guys, boom. There's your rejection candle at the 286 level. There it is. So this level right here, the 286, just seems to be giving MU a lot of problems. So that's an interesting find. But yeah, that looks good. So you could short off that 286 level, and run it back down to, I would say, that 283, 283.50. Let's just watch this. Actually, let's just make that call. So we called the 286 rejection, and I would be looking at right in here that 283.50 level. And I would cut it at the day's high. So the day's high is 286.66. So I wouldn't, because again, if this thing consolidates and throws another leg up and does break that 286, even if it ultimately rejects it, you don't want to risk that much because this thing can really move. So I wouldn't go. So I would risk the 286.66. I would probably put my stop right at like 75, and then see if this thing can at least retrace back down to here to this level to 283. So it looks like it's going to retest that high. Let's see if we break it or if we reject it. It looks like it's about to retest it. Okay, it just retested it at 71. I mentioned doing a stop loss at 75, and yeah, we would be stopped out there. So it looks like it's going to continue to move on. It did not fail at this second test, so it's making new highs. You can see that volume came in a lot higher. Even if it ultimately rejects it, it trapped a lot of people. It got the shorts out, and it may very well do that. It looks like silver rejected that. So yeah, longs got up to 66.30. Let's see where that secondary push is. Interesting, very interesting. Yeah, so it actually retraced, silver retraced. Let's just give this a break real quick. I'll be on for a little bit. So it looks like we retraced about half of the move. And then we rejected that. So it's quite a play there, right? So it's kind of the same idea as we didn't fill the gap and we're retesting. And so what would happen here is you're looking for that 65.15 retrace, but I don't know if I'd really be interested, because you've already ran up a buck, which is pretty good for a retrace on the short. I don't know if I would want to go back with the long and the secondary. To me, and this thing is showing signs that it wants to move back down. So that's an interesting play. Let's look at MU. So MU looks like it's breaking that 286 level. So see, this is why you got to risk manage. So would have stopped out there. Now it's going to continue higher. And so what did we mention that level was here? Yeah, this level here. It broke that 286 level. So if it can hold and close above that in the 15 minutes, which is in about 3 minutes, if it can close above that, then yeah, this is a great stock. But yeah, it needs to close above and hold. So good job, MU. Small retrace and continue that momentum. Let's see here. Stocks are all trying to push up higher. Let's see what the market can do. But yeah, that 286 has been an interesting level for this stock. But you can see this solid candle, man. There's no rejection. We're about to close that 15 minutes in about a minute. So let's just see how it closes, but just solid. Tesla looks super weak. Super weak. Oh my God, Tesla's like, it's just been down a lot. It just keeps bouncing, bouncing, and rejecting. And so that tells me that if this floor breaks, we're going a lot lower, right? So they're trying to push the stock. It gets rejected by this volume weighted average price, rejected, rejected, and then it just wants to break. So if you're shorting, this is the break you're looking for. You're not shorting anywhere here. You're shorting right here, for that break of that 463 level. Okay. Because if you start shorting up here somewhere, you may end up getting blown out. So yeah, Tesla's down a lot. It's a lot of room to move. You may see that 459 today. Look at our friend MU. So, we mentioned the secondary push, the retest took us out because it made all new highs. And then look, that 286 level, the magic level, the 286. Again, it's still a strong bullish candle. I wouldn't be shorting the stock. You're getting pennies, risking dollars. Not worth it. There's no trade here. But that 286 level is, what I was looking at. Now that we finished the 15 minutes, you can see it's simply a retrace. Um, but it's just maybe retraces right here to that 285 level. But you got 5-6 straight green candles. It's not a stock that would be shorting, not into that type of momentum. Silver, yeah, kind of found that bottom at the 65, and it's up over north 66 now. So it's definitely it's a good one. It's a good one. Man, it's a great, and why I love silver too is not just the cost. It's not a lot of these stocks we're watching are quite expensive, but like I mentioned, it's just a slow, steady mover and it has a small range, right? Like you can see here's this average true range of $2. And so you're not risking a whole lot of money with the range. You kind of know what risk portfolio you have. Again, this was a high volume day, so we had a higher range, but that's kind of the nicer thing is if you're off by like, let's say you picked the wrong direction, you're risking maybe 50 cents, like what if you're wrong in MU and I mentioned you were shorting pre-market and you didn't close and you didn't close your position. I mean, you'd be down 10 points in a matter of 5 or 6 minutes. So and it's a much more expensive stock. So that's kind of the nice thing I've always appreciated about Tesla is actually trying to make a move again. Today's highs. We're moving now. This is the Bollinger Band. The Bollinger Band is represented by a high, a low, and a mid band. You can see that it depending on the band, it consolidates, it squeezes, it tells you what the stock's doing, just helps you understand it. And now when it trades over here, that tells me that we may see a reversal if we can hold up. And so we need to start consolidating sideways. And if we can consolidate sideways, we may be able to see a reversal. And, people are going to start shorting. If we look at Tesla, the play for a lot of shorts, people are going to start shorting here, 475. And if that level breaks and, they close the gap, this thing may end up running right to 485. So it should be a good one. App just made some fresh lows. Very interesting. Very interested. Just broke that level. So App losing that bid. Very nice. We may find that, maybe today is the day. We've been waiting, started looking at it. It was this day. And then just this week of indecisiveness. But man, if we could get, I mean, there really is no level of support here. I wouldn't even really call this a support. This was just a 1 day thing. I mean, this day was really this would have been the support here. So 657, this thing can move quite aggressively. This could come in pretty good today, guys. It could be a good day for us for our puts because as you guys know, the sooner you get your puts out, the better, right? We don't want to hold on puts till expiration. We want the puts to come into play as fast as we can so we get the time degradation doesn't hurt us. Um, so we're, 685 is our low. So we're definitely trading a lot lower. But the volume is just so low on that stock. It's super low. It's only, 480,000. It's just not a liquid stock. Tesla rejected that level, by the way. So we're at 468. We're down 3 points from that high. Like I mentioned, as long as we're trading right above that Bollinger Band mid range and we consolidate, then I can see this thing running, right? So if we come right back down here, it's the theory is gone. But you see where this dotted line is, it represents the Bollinger mid band. As long as we bounce off of that, I expect this thing to trade sideways. And then as the Bollinger Band comes together and consolidates, that we can get up. So let's see. Like I said, Tesla just looks weak today, but there is a move back up. So let's see what we can do. And with that said, guys, I think that's pretty much it for today. I think there's some moves going on. We could look at app and on the minute chart. So it looks like it's bouncing off that 685. A lot of selling though. That's a big sell bar. That's a really high volume sell. So looks like it's bouncing off that 790. But I mean, there's just a long way to go for this thing. So if the sell comes in, then let's see. But yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much it. Let me start sharing here. Let me get back onto my stream. So guys, that's pretty much it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the stream. Please add some comments below if this was helpful, and I'll continue on. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.